The thing with narcissism, though, a lot of times when you get into a relationship with one, you don't know that at first, of course. And now I know all the terms and the understanding of it. There's a love bombing phase at the beginning where you're just whisked away, which is what happened to me. That you found that this perfect person, right? That knows you and sees you and is the perfect person for you. But in reality, it's really just trying to get you under their control. And then once you are, then the mask starts to fall and you start to see subtle things that, well, wait a minute, that doesn't really line up with how you were before, and you used to be like this, but now you're not like that anymore. And it's very confusing because it's almost like there's two different people that you're dealing with, and a lot of times it's behind closed doors. So to the outside world, this person looks amazing, right? Then behind closed doors, that's not the case. And here's the danger in these narcissistic relationships is if you continuously give in, and that's what a codependent person or a people pleaser, right, will do. It's like, oh, okay, well, all right, fine. I'll just give in and let you do what you want because you want to keep the peace. Well, that might short-term fix the situation, but long-term, that's where you lose your voice. That's where you're giving up who you are. There comes a point in your life. And really, that was my point of leaving that relationship of like, I needed help. And I couldn't do it alone, right? And it was, I just kept praying. And I will share that, like, I prayed for months and months and months while I was figuring out what was going on. While I was understanding what narcissism was, I was putting in the pieces of the puzzle of what created my life. And I just kept praying and praying for God to please come and rescue me and my children.
Welcome to Bold Journeys. It is great to see you today.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. Well, looking at your background, I know that you are a narcissistic abuse survivor. You're also a recovery specialist. You've got some expertise in this area, unfortunately, hard-won expertise.
Yes.
Through experiences that you've had. I see you also have a title as a holistic healer. And so maybe just a quick overview of what you went through. And I know it was some really tough years. Can we dive into that a bit?
Sure. Yes, I would say at this point, I'm a narcissistic abuse advocate. I'm a survivor myself and an advocate for raising awareness for people and also in helping in people's recovery. Never would have imagined that this would be where I sit, considering in what happened in my personal world. But basically, I mean, the highlights, and it's hard to obviously, to make into a small snippet, but growing up, didn't realize any of these things. But typically, whenever you find yourself attracted to a narcissist in a relationship, typically there are things in the past that you find normal. So let's say in my growing up, my childhood, my father had narcissistic traits. I didn't know that. I didn't know what narcissism was, didn't know any of that. But it made sense that then that is what I gravitated to for friendships, intimate relationships, and also even within jobs, in professional relationships. So it was the idea that it seemed normal to me for someone to get really angry and, kind of, blow off steam or give the silent treatment or punish, in certain ways. It didn't feel good for sure, but it just seemed normal or familiar, if that makes sense. The thing with narcissism, though, a lot of times when you get into a relationship with one, you don't know that at first, of course. And now I know all the terms and the understanding of it. There's a love bombing phase at the beginning where you're just whisked away, which is what happened to me. That you found that this perfect person, right? That knows you and sees you and is the perfect person for you. But in reality, it's really just trying to get you under their control. And then once you are, and whether that means, you're fully friends or you're in a work relationship or you get married or whatever the case is, then the mask starts to fall and you start to see subtle things that, well, wait a minute, that doesn't really line up with how you were before. And, oh, wait a minute, you used to be like this, but now you're not like that anymore. And it's very confusing because it's almost like there's two different people that you're dealing with. And a lot of times it's behind closed doors. So to the outside world, this person looks amazing, right? They're just like this amazing person. But then behind closed doors, that's not the case. And so it's very confusing. So in my experience, again, having been involved in many different narcissistic relationships, it wasn't until the longest one that I was in that I recognized I needed help. I needed to understand what was happening. And I did seek therapy and professional help to try to piece together the dysfunction of what was going on in my world. And here's the thing with anything in life, like when you don't understand something, it's confusing. But when you start to put pieces together of, okay, wait a minute, there's words for this, there's labels for this, that gives me an understanding of what I'm dealing with. And that's what happened for me when I started learning about narcissism and reading about it and diving into it and watching videos and all these things. It was eye-opening, Rob. It was like, this makes complete sense of what my life is right now. And that was, I mean, huge in a way. It was also scary because it was like, whoa, this is what I'm dealing with some dark stuff here that I had no idea. Speak to the fact that it wasn't that I was blind to it for years. It was just many years went by where things didn't feel right, or there'd be explosive arguments or just awful things that would happen. And that didn't feel right in my body. And I knew it. That part I knew. I just didn't understand it. And I didn't know what to do with it. So the people pleaser in me, the codependent in me, which is also learned, right? And typically the match between a narcissist is typically the magnetic connection is narcissist, codependent, narcissist, empath, narcissist, people pleaser, because they're people that a narcissist can easily control. So I'm a generally positive, happy person wanting to make everybody happy. And I learned a lot of that codependency from my mom growing up, never understanding it either then. So it was like, wait a minute. Now this makes sense. Like I don't have any boundaries. I've let this person control me for all these years. This isn't okay. This isn't okay. And so that's where big changes in my life were made. And when I was looking for help and support for this, because it's very niche, it's very something that's, under the surface. I'm very grateful that I have a large family, Italian family, and lots of friends that were very supportive in that space when I was in my darkest space in my life. But they didn't understand it either. And it was very frustrating to have to always try to explain what was going on, because a lot of it is psychological. And a lot of what people get is, oh, Deanna, I think you're being a little paranoid, or I think you're overthinking this. You're making too much of this. And it was like, no, I know that I'm not. Like there is serious psychological warfare going on here and serious emotional verbal abuse that is really hard for most people on the surface to see. But I knew that's what I was experiencing. So I was looking for help. And honestly, Rob, go ahead.
Sorry, Deanna. Did your friends and family recognize it, or was the other person so good at masking it or playing the other role to them and being so charming to them?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's exactly it. Most people were charmed by that person, and they couldn't wrap their head around that he could be this like really cruel, evil person, to be honest. And my closest, I mean, that's where I had to keep my circle very tight in that space. My closest family, my siblings, and a few close friends were in the know of understanding, okay, like this is real and this is happening, because mostly everyone else just was like, well, I can't believe that, Deanna. How could that be? How could that be? And I said, trust me, like if the wool was pulled over your eyes, trust me, how do you think I feel, right?
Yeah.
Like I felt that way for years, that this person that I've been with for all these years is not actually the person that I thought he was. And that's a scary revelation, a very scary revelation. And it's the whole idea of like a wolf in sheep's clothing type of thing, where I didn't see it for many years. And when I finally saw it, I couldn't unsee it. But yet then it was a matter of, I realized I'm not here in the business to now try to convince my friends and family of this. Like I know this is happening, and I was in just sheer survival mode at that point, Rob.
Yeah.
So honestly, I was in the state of like, I had my core people in my circle who were there to support me. Whether they understood it or not, they had my back. And everyone else, I kind of had this attitude like they are going to figure it out at some point, and I can't. At this point, I'm trying to survive for me and my children, and I can't be trying to just, convince people or explain things to people. It was a sheer survival space.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. The piece of that, well, I'll stick there with family and friends. Guess what happens after years? I mean, it's been at least 7+ years. Most family and friends have recognized what I knew then. And it just took a little bit more time, and that's okay. I don't judge anyone around me. It's crazy, Rob. I've had people come up to me, family, friends, people in my community, my church, literally apologize to me and say, because it was a whole smear campaign that, everything that I was the problem, that I was the wrongdoer in this
Right.
situation. And I had people come and apologize to me and say, Deanna, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I believed this other person, right? I believed that they were good, and I believed and I said, it's okay. I understand. It's really confusing and really hard to differentiate really who, in this situation. It's just that I had this very deep soul feeling that I have to worry about myself and my children,
Yeah.
and everyone else will follow suit, which is what's happened. But I'm grateful to that those people in my circle that stood by me, not even understanding the narcissistic piece. But what's crazy, Rob, is that people in that circle, by walking that journey with me, they have recognized narcissists in their life that were people that were really difficult to deal with. And they realize, oh my gosh, Deanna, because I know this now from your journey, this has helped me piece things together in mine. And for that, I'm very proud. And I said, if my hurt and suffering and pain is able to help you in a positive way, then I'm happy about that for sure. And that was on a, family and friends level. And then where I took it was to another level, is that I recognized I needed help in that time space. And I did look because I'm a big kind of support group person. I've always in my life just kind of looked to, I don't know, I feel like when you're with people in the same boat, it helps, right? It's like you feel comfort, you feel like we have some relatability, right? So I was an expat and I lived overseas several times. So I joined an American expat group. I'm a twin mom. I joined a twin mom group when my kids were little. I just like that space. So I had looked for some sort of group that, for narcissistic abuse when I was in that space needing help, and I didn't find anything. And I was like, okay, well, I squirreled that information away in my brain, and I was like, at some point when I am in a better space and I am more recovered and healed, I'm going to start a support group for narcissistic abuse, because I knew that, and I still know that it's very necessary.
Yeah. You weren't the only
And so
one. You're not
that's
the only one going through this.
exactly,
How
exactly.
common is it? Do you know, like, what percentage of people are narcissists, or what percentage of relationships? Are there any
Gosh.
studies on that?
Yeah, there are studies, but there are studies, but it's hard, and I'll tell you why. To have those like real statistics, because first off, most narcissism is a personality disorder. It's a mental disorder, and it needs to be fully diagnosed by a health professional. Most narcissists go undetected.
They're
They
not
don't
going to go
go. They
volunteer to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So most narcissists are not, and the reason is because they're just physically, and that's the brain chemistry piece of it. There is science behind it. They're physically not possible. They're not capable to introspect and to reflect on themselves. So that's why, therapy and those kinds of things that would normally help somebody would not typically help a narcissist. And they'd have to admit that there's fault, and a narcissist won't do
He's not
that.
going to do that.
So right. So right there, your numbers are skewed as far as, how many narcissists there are, type of thing. Then what's also skewed is the relationships that most people, especially when they're in an intimate, like a romantic relationship with a narcissist, whether they realize it or not, many people don't come forward. They don't speak about it. They stay hidden. They suffer silently. So there's that whole component that, as far as how many narcissistic relationships there are, it's hard to even say those numbers, because most people will stay, and sadly, most people will stay in them forever, for their life. Some people will stay in them knowing that it's not healthy, and they just figure, well, this is, misery. It's kind of like the misery is familiar. So it's like, I'd rather stay in that than the unknown, right? So it's hard to say those numbers, but I will say, from a man, woman, a female, male perspective, there are stats about, at least what is known, that it's typically that the narcissists are more male. It's like, again, I don't know the specific stats, but if you're looking, it's like 75-25, where there are women, female narcissists for sure. And I know personally quite a few in my life, but it is typically more men. And I don't know if that's just because of the narcissist traits are controlling, and I don't know why that is, but
Mhm.
I try to help and recover and help anyone, doesn't matter man or woman, and help in that recovery. But I do find in my work that it's definitely more women that are coming and seeking the recovery piece because they've been a victim of the narcissistic abuse.
Do you think they intentionally prey? I mean, do they consciously prey on weaker people? Do you think it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
conscious decision to seek out someone who is more susceptible?
Yes. Yes, I do. I do think it's conscious, but I think a big part of it is also subconscious. So in understanding narcissism, again, you have to go pretty deep. And the idea is that there is a change in the brain chemistry of a narcissist where, and it's the same on the opposite for an empath, where the neuroreceptors in the brain are changed. So meaning a narcissist has a lack of empathy. They are not able to put themselves in anyone else's shoes to see how they're to understand how they're feeling. It's all about them, right? And an empath on the opposite side, their brain chemistry is different because they are more sensitive and more susceptible to feeling things, right? So typically narcissism, like most things, is generational, right? If there's someone, and that's with many things, right? Even like alcoholism or addictions, right? A lot of times if it's in the household and it's lived, it's seen, it's breathed, then a lot of times that will transfer to the children and then the grandchildren. So it's generational. So that's where the brain chemistry changes along the way. So, in answer to your question, a lot of it is subconscious. It's just that they do it. A narcissist will do it because that's what they learned and that's what they watched in their upbringing. So, a lot of times, they don't even recognize certain things that they do or behaviors
Hmm.
are wrong per se or not okay because to them, it's normal and familiar. But
Yeah.
there is a conscious piece, absolutely. And this I'll tell you, and I know exactly, I've experienced personally why. I struggled with that piece for a long time, Rob, where in the narcissistic relationship that I was in, it was almost 20 years. And there were many points where, I was belittled or degraded and, emotionally, just verbally and emotionally abused. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel good. I was almost like scolded as though I was a child, but I wasn't, right? And so, of course, I would confront that person and say like, "That's not nice. It made me feel like this. It made me feel
Mhm.
not good." And that person just, gaslighted on top of it and just said like, "Oh, you're too sensitive and you're making too much of it. You're taking it too personal and this, that, whatever." But there was this piece of me that always felt like you're intentionally trying to hurt me. And at some point it came out. I kept saying like, "I think that you're really trying to make me feel bad and hurt me." And this person kept denying it and saying, "Oh, Deanna, that's ridiculous. Like you're being crazy. Like, of course I'm not trying to hurt you. It's not intentional." But here's the thing, Rob. If you go and approach anyone in your life at one time, two time, repeatedly and say, something that you're doing is upsetting me, a normal, healthy person will say, they could easily say, "Wow, I didn't realize that. I'm so sorry. I will be more conscious of it in the future."
Yeah.
So that in the future, they're going to change that pattern to say, "Oh, I recognize that when I say this or do this, it upsets this person." A normal person will say, "Okay, I get that. And I'm going to make sure that I'm more conscious of it in the future." With a narcissist, they just keep repeating and repeating and repeating. We were having the same fights and
Yeah.
arguments over and over and over again until finally I said to this person, "You know what? All this time I thought it wasn't unintentional, but no, it's absolutely intentional. And I know it now. I know it because it's that conscious piece of the narcissist to want to keep control over you and want to make you feel less than, because then that makes them feel even bigger than life type of
Yeah.
thing. And for them, sadly, they have to put others down to make themselves feel better. So it is very conscious. And the last piece I'll say there is that the way I also recognized that it was conscious was that I realized that this person could flip that switch in any moment. Meaning in front of other people, if we were in public, he wouldn't act a certain way. But then when it was just us, he would. And so I questioned that as well. And I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, if you're able to switch it on and off like a switch, then that tells me, right, that it's conscious and that it
Yeah.
is intentional.
And Deanna, I saw that as I shared with you of a narcissistic relationship amongst our family, and that person was such a chameleon and
Yes.
such a good liar.
Yes.
And what he would tell me, to pump me up or make me think that things were different, and then turn around and tell the other person just totally the opposite and make stories up,
Something
right?
else.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's the piece of it. A narcissist is very intelligent, and because they can manipulate their words and
Yes.
behaviors for different audiences and for different people, and hence the confusion, right? So I had people at my church that were like, Deanna, I don't understand. How could that possibly be that this person is this doing all these bad things to you, right? He seems so great. Yeah,
Hmm.
okay. Seems that way in that, but that's not the version that we see. And that's the thing, that the narcissist with narcissism, they talk about this mask, a mask that they wear for other people in public, and then what really is underneath is what a person who is intimately involved with a narcissist can see. And that goes with family as well. Like, it could be a parent, it could be siblings. Again, it could be a narcissist, could be anyone in your life. But when you have a personal relationship and you're with them more, you see more. That's where you start to see those like signs, like you're saying, like, well, wait a minute, he said this to me, but then turned around and said this to someone else, and it's completely opposite, completely contradictory. The
Hmm.
contradictions are always there.
Yeah.
And you catch them in little lies and all of that. But if you're not paying attention and they're just a casual person in your life, you're not going to see that.
They also subject the other person to a lot of abuse. There's mental abuse, verbal abuse, physical
Yes.
abuse,
Emotional
emotional abuse. In your
could
darkest
be,
time, how bad did it get for you?
yeah. Emotional. I was going to add two more. It could be financial,
Mm,
sexual,
yes.
legal, medical. There's many,
There's a lot
many.
of
No,
categories.
sadly, I know many of those
Yeah.
personally, but yes, there's a lot of categories that they can manipulate. So, and I'm sorry, so just repeat what your question was, because I was just
I'm
honed
just
in on the.
curious, in your darkest days, you were in that relationship for a long time. I mean, you don't have to go into the gory details, but I'm just wondering, how dark did it get for you that you had to, because
It
you had
got,
to come out of that?
yes, it got very dark, very, very dark and scary. Scary is just keep the word that I keep using, because it was completely fear-based and I was scared to leave. And I feel most people in an intimate narcissistic relationship have that very same fear. And then there's, trauma, there's science behind it as well. There's trauma bonding, which is the reason why actually I've seen it many times, and maybe you have too, Rob, where a person will leave that relationship and then get so scared because that narcissist then threatens them, and then I mean pulls out all the stops to then try to bring them back in, and they do come back in because they're scared,
Or
right?
woos them
So
back
that,
in with that, kind of go back to that love
yes.
bomb idea.
Yes, well, that point, then it's called hoovering. It's like a vacuum where they're trying to like literally suck you back in,
Yeah.
because the narcissist needs that supply and you are that supply. So it's not that they love you so much and they don't want you to leave. It's like you're their supply and they don't want you to leave. So then it almost, and this is what happens. This is what happened in my world. It amps up their behaviors. So if a narcissist recognizes that they're about to lose you and you're their main supply, it amps up their behaviors to try to hold you in. Now, that could look different for many different people. It could be overly love bombing, like, oh, I love you so much, I can't bear to be without you, come back. Or in my situation, it was scary. It was not a love situation. It was like fear and threats and scary things that if you leave, like these awful things are going to happen to you. And that's a really scary place to be. And Rob, at that point, I did not feel safe in my own home, and I did not feel safe in my environment. And that is a scary thing. Now I'll speak to the physical side, because, I can approach narcissistic abuse from many different angles, from obviously a personal side, the emotional side, but also a science side and the psychology side. As a massage therapist, I know the science behind it, what it does, what stress, any kind of stress can do to the body and to the physiological state of your body. When I was in my darkest time and it was in that state of feeling so scared, not knowing what to do, I knew I had to leave, but I was scared about how am I going to do this to stay safe, right? The physical symptoms that I was feeling in my body, I will never forget for as long as I live, because it was so scary. Things that I had never felt before. I was having panic attacks. I've never had panic attacks in my life. I'd heard about them. Scary, like to the point where those are really, in a true panic attack, you can't even breathe. You're like suffocated. So the anxiety that I was feeling was through the roof. I felt like, and this is how I described it, that there was this like concrete that was sitting on my chest, on my heart, because I couldn't breathe. I felt suffocated. I would wake up in the middle of the night, racing heart, like the blood pressure through the roof. It was the scariest point of my life that I'd never felt any of those symptoms before. And the thing is, I'm grateful at least that I knew it was because of the stress of what I was going through and what I was under. But I knew that I couldn't sustain that for a long period of time. I had to figure a way. Otherwise, and I'm not exaggerating, Rob. I knew that if I had stayed, because I had, of course, had those thoughts like, can I just stay and just, suck it up type of thing and learn how to
Yeah.
live with this? It would have taken me physically. And I was very, very aware of that. And so that's where it was like my faith kicked in. It was it was so many things at that point. It was knowing that I needed help professionally. I needed help from God. I needed a lot of help to help me and my family get out of that situation.
Yeah. I want to go back to your childhood. You mentioned several things, and I'm curious, and maybe there's some commonalities of people who are more susceptible to meeting someone like this, or not just meeting, but engaging with someone like this. Tell me more about your childhood and what that was like.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I want to say and believe that I had a great childhood. I really did. I have a lot of happy memories. And again, like I mentioned, I'm a part of a big Italian family, and where there's an Italian family, there's a lot of love and food and just great values. So the value of family is embedded in me, and I'm very very grateful for that and proud of that, and happy that my parents and grandparents instilled that, because it's something that I am very proud to instill in my own children. So overall, it was great, and I guess here's the thing, Rob. It's so interesting. It's like during my childhood, I thought everything was wonderful, right? I have so many wonderful memories and vacations and family events and like wonderful. It really wasn't until I got older that, first off, I guess when you leave the home and you go off into the world, you're on your own, you start to meet other people and see other people's families, and then you may have relationships and friendships, and you start to see other people's families and dynamics, and you think, huh, that's kind of different from mine, right? So it really wasn't until I got older where I recognized that, I knew growing up that my dad had a temper, and he would get very angry, and it would get scary when he got angry. But my mother was the peacemaker, and she did what I did for many years without realizing, just tried to keep the peace. And so shielding, me and my sister and my brother from that. But growing up, we knew that's not okay. But it was kind of like, oh, that happened and we'll just keep going type of thing,
Yeah.
right? But it wasn't until I was older where I actually recognized the behavior of my dad to my mom more in their adult lives and my adult life, where as an adult, and when I was older and married and had kids, I realized like that's really not nice. Like, for example, the silent treatment is one, because the silent treatment is a classic narcissist trait where somebody doesn't do or say what you want them to do, and so now you're mad and you're angry, and so you're going to punish them by not speaking to them or withholding affection or not doing, they asked you for help and now you're not going to do it on spite because no, I'm mad at you. That is a very dysfunctional way of handling a disagreement. And I watched my dad do that all the time to my mom. And as a kid, again, I didn't understand it. But as I got
Mhm.
older, I was like, that's not really nice at all. And so I would side with my mom, and then my dad would get mad at me and that type of thing. So I recognized those dynamics as I got older. Then, when I put the spotlight on my own world, I realized, oh my gosh, that's happening in my world too, in the relationship that I'm in. And I'm being punished, right? Because I didn't do what he wanted me to do, or I had my own opinion on something, or that kind of a thing. And here's the danger in these narcissistic relationships is that if you continuously, which is what I did for many years and I didn't recognize it, I wasn't aware of it, so I couldn't fix it. If you continuously give in, and that's what a codependent person or a people pleaser, right, will do. It's like, oh, okay, well, all right, fine. I'll just give in and let you do what you want because you want to keep the peace. Well, that might short term fix the situation, but long term, that's where you lose your voice. That's where you're giving up who you are, and you're just
Mhm.
literally just like, yeah, okay, whatever you're doing. So at some point, Rob, I realized in this long relationship that I was just along for the ride of his life, of what he wanted to do, his dreams, his aspirations, all the things that he wanted to do, because all of those things that were mine, didn't matter and we didn't have time for. So I speak to this a lot now in the recovery piece for clients. It's not just about leaving a narcissistic relationship that is unhealthy for you and for all the ways that we described, physically, emotionally, verbally. You lose your self-esteem, your self-confidence. There's so many things that you lose along the way. But the bigger picture is that I believe we all have a light inside of us, and we are meant to share our gifts and our unique traits and things with the world. And when you're in a narcissistic relationship that pushes you down and makes you feel so small and less than, you're not able to share those gifts because you're not confident enough. You don't believe you can. So at some point, I recognized I cannot be the person that I am meant to be on this earth, that God made me to be, if I stay in this relationship. And that's a huge revelation.
Yeah.
For anyone who's in these kinds of relationships.
And I'm thinking kind of visually, you were talking about this weight on your chest. It's like your own light couldn't shine because there's this weight that's just constricting and constricting, getting heavier and heavier and holding you back.
Exactly. And another visual, I'm very visual, Rob, so I use a lot of like visuals to explain things. The concrete boulder was the one piece, but the other one that's been in my healing that I use a lot in my work, and it's how I felt. It was thinking about a lamp. You have a lamp with a light bulb and a lamp shade over it. So the light is pretty bright. The lampshade is blocking some of it, but it's pretty bright. I felt that throughout that relationship, that person just kept putting another lampshade over my light. So that to the point where at the end, in my darkest time that you asked me about, I felt like my light, my own internal light of who I am, was almost out. And that was a really scary feeling, really scary feeling. So in my healing, what I've recognized that has happened is that in all the things that I have done, and I've done a lot to help heal myself, and healing is a constant. So I feel much more healed than I was, but it's still a process, and we're always healing until the day we die, I really believe. But in that process, Rob, it's almost as though each one of those lampshades was being taken off one by one, exactly. And what happened in the process? My light started getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And not only did I notice it, everyone around me, my family, my friends, my clients, people I work with, notice, oh my gosh, Deanna, like it's palpable, right?
Yeah.
How much brighter you are. And I couldn't be that. I was that before the relationship, but I couldn't be that while I was in that relationship anymore. So I speak a lot to that in the healing, because the silver lining of, if you've ever been in this kind of relationship, it's terrible and it's awful, and it's honestly makes you question humanity about how evil and cruel someone can be. So believe me when I tell you, I'm not exaggerating on that dark side.
Yeah.
But when you get out of that and you can come to the light and get to the other side, the beauty there I speak to is the journey of self-rediscovery and rediscovering who you are, what you're here for, what you're meant to do, and what you're meant to shine in the light that's inside of you. And that is beautiful. And I choose to focus on that, because if I talked all day about the awfulness, it would be so negative, so negative.
Deanna, you mentioned the faith side of it, and just talking about the light shining reminds me of, the Bible verses that talk about let your light shine and don't put a bushel over your light. Even the children's song that you learn in Sunday school about, I can't remember exactly how it goes, but I'm going to let it shine, let it shine.
I'm going to let it shine. Oh, that song gives me chills. I love that song.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were you...
And the verse, sorry, about not putting a lamp under a stool, that the lamp needs to be.
Yeah, exactly. Were you raised in the faith? Was your family religious?
Yes. So I grew up Roman Catholic, went to Catholic school actually all my life.
New York family.
Yes, exactly. It's the stereotype for sure, for sure. Went to Catholic school, elementary, high school, and a Christian college. And yes, my faith has always been strong in that sense. I watched my mother had a very, very strong faith, and she was definitely the person that I looked up to for that. Her faith was really everything to her, and she modeled that, and I'm very grateful for that. Into my 20s and 30s, I, fell away in the sense that I've always believed in God and believed in my faith, but it was the kind of thing like, oh, my faith is there. Like, I don't really need it. It's on the side. Like, I'm good, It wasn't until I had my own children that I realized that I recognized I wanted to model that faith for them as well. But I'm being completely honest, Rob. I felt as though I was kind of still going through the motions where it's like I felt like this is what I learned, this was what was ingrained, this is what I'm supposed to do. And now I have children and I have to go to mass and make sure they receive their sacraments and do all of those things. But it still felt like I was just doing it, going through those motions. And really, and this is what I speak to a lot, and I'm sure many people can relate to, that there comes a point in your life. And for some people, it's this dramatic point, and it could be when you're younger, older, where you recognize that something is bigger than you. And really, that was my point of leaving that relationship, of like, I needed help. And I couldn't do it alone, right? And it was, I just kept praying. And I will share that. Like, I prayed for months and months and months while I was figuring out what was going on. While I was understanding what narcissism was, I was putting in the pieces of the puzzle of what created my life. And I just kept praying and praying for God to please come and rescue me and my children, because it was nothing more than a miracle in how we got out and how we got out safely, because that was the biggest piece. And so it was a faith piece, because it was a come to Jesus moment in my life where I realized I needed God. And now, and since then, in my recovery, God isn't here on the side. He's here in the forefront. And so again, I can be grateful for that, because I do everything that I do is guided by my intuition. And I believe intuition comes from our higher source, our higher power.
It's interesting. Last Sunday at our church, we had a neurosurgeon come as a guest speaker.
Wow.
And fascinating guy. And he talks about doing your own brain surgery and rewiring your brain.
That's awesome.
But he talked about the two different types of people who, in that circumstance that you were in, one group of people would more blame God and turn away from God, right? And listen
Yes.
to other voices in their head and from other people,
Yes.
as opposed to what you did, which you leaned into God. But did you go into that? Did you have those trials of, why God are you making me go through this?
Yeah, that is such a great question, Rob, and I really appreciate you sharing that. And remind me, we got to come back to the retraining of the brain from the neurosurgeon. So, a few years prior to that deep dark place I was in of needing to leave the narcissistic relationship, I had other trauma. Long story short, I lost both my parents pretty traumatically a few years before I left this relationship. It was an awful time in my life. I mean, grief doesn't even describe what I was feeling. My mom was sick with pancreatic cancer, and we were preparing for her because we knew that she was in hospice, and she was going to be passing away. But me, my sister, my brother had never imagined what would happen after that, the whole broken heart syndrome. But basically, after my mom passed, within 48 hours, my dad went into cardiac arrest and passed away as
48
well.
hours later.
The same. I lost my parents in a weekend. My kids lost their grandparents in a weekend. And it still gives me chills. I can talk about it now, but it still gives me chills, because it almost seems like, how does that even happen, right? You hear about stories like that. You hear about those things happen to other people, right? But it happened to us. And so the amount of grief that I was swimming in was unbearable. And actually, that is it's all connected. It's all connected. I can look back now in my life and see that. But the grief that I was feeling led me to seek professional help, to go to therapy. I'd never gone to therapy in my life before. In an Italian American family, it was pretty taboo, right? Like, we don't do therapy type of thing, right? Right. So that led me there. The therapy then led me to understanding the dysfunction in my relationship, and
Because you were
and
still in that relationship at that point.
Yes, exactly. So I do believe, and I say that to this day, that my parents' deaths, even in their death, helped me, lead me in my life and guide me. And I believe that I'm very spiritual. I'm faithful. I'm spiritual. All of the things. And I know that my parents have helped me more from the other side than they possibly could have here. And I'm so grateful for that. But yes, so in answer to the faith piece, it was at that moment, actually, Rob, so this was a few years prior to me leaving the narcissistic relationship, where I had those questions and thoughts. Like, why? Why, God? Why would you do this? Why would you take both my parents from me, right? I mean, it's so tragic. But here's the thing, and this is something that my sister and I talk a lot about. I know a lot of people who've been in that space where they've blamed God for whether taking someone from them or something terrible in their life happening. And I knew I had a choice at that moment. I knew I had a choice to lean in one way or the other. And for whatever reason, for me, the natural leaning in was leaning in towards God because I felt like I started going to church again and it felt different. It felt like I wasn't there just going through the motion because I'm supposed to, as a good Catholic, go to church on Sundays. I felt like it was my peace. I felt like every single time I went, I got something out of it, as far as from the Bible and the readings. But I also felt like at that point, that's where I felt closest to my parents. So I felt like if I want to believe that my parents are in heaven, well, then I need to get closer to God because that's where they are. So it was a very natural, again, like I said, I had those moments of thinking, which way am I going to go? But it felt very natural to lean in. And I know many people who still are in that space of like angry at God because he did something in their life or took something from them. And I just feel like that's a very heavy negative place to be in. And that's a very heavy burden to carry that I don't want to carry. I'd rather go the opposite route that I wish to this day, I wish my parents were here on earth next to me, hugging me, guiding me. But I know that it happened for whatever reason, it happened the way that it did. And it helped guide me and my siblings in our lives since then. So that's what I take with me.
In those situations, for me personally, even within my own family, we've handled it differently, losing parents, problems with children, things like that, where
Yes.
I landed where you did. I decided to lean into God, whereas I have siblings who went the other direction and are still angry. In your
Yes.
own family, was there two different paths or did they all make the same decision you did?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'll speak to my children and actually so I guess in my story that's why my parents passing was a precursor to then
Yeah.
leaving the narcissistic relationship and again they're connected in many ways. And so afterwards, after leaving the narcissistic relationship, my kids really struggled. They really struggled and they were in that very angry space, angry at God, angry at the world,
Yeah.
angry at me. Like, why, anytime anything bad happens in your life, of course, we're human to say, like, why is this happening? Right. And so I actually had many conversations with my children and even using the example of my parents passing to say, like, look, and I believe this to this day to my core that life is full of joys and pains and sorrows and highs and lows and everything in between. And no one will escape any of that, right? We're human and those things happen to each of us, maybe different intensities and different situations. But when something happens to you, you feel like you're angry because you feel like you're out of control. Like it couldn't stop this from happening, a person passing away, a relationship leaving. But in the end, I recognize you actually do have control. You don't have control of what happened, but you have control of how you respond. And that is huge, Rob. And so what I said to my children was that, we lost I lost my parents. You lost your grandparents the way that we did. And it was awful and it was tragic and it was so, so heart wrenching. But we can't let that stop us from living life, right? So we chose to lean into God and to keep going as a family and honor, which we do to this day. We honor my parents in so many different ways. Okay, that's how we choose to continue. And so it's the same with leaving the narcissistic relationship. There was so much hurt and so much ugliness and awfulness but I said, I'm choosing not to sit there and not to stay there. I have a lot of anger and resentment and bitterness, but that's not what I want to hold on to. I
Yeah.
want to take what was good and I want to continue on. So the choice is staying in that situation, angry, resentful, and bitter and hurt, or saying, you know what? This happened. It was awful. I wish it didn't happen, but it did. But I'm going to consciously choose to continue on in my life and heal and look at things from a positive standpoint. So I think that's the biggest thing. And that happens, to everybody in any situation where you lean into your faith, you lean into positivity and love instead of anger and hurt. And I know a lot of people struggle with that of like holding on to things for years and years. Who are you hurting? You're
Yeah.
hurting yourself.
That's right.
You're only hurting yourself.
There's the victimhood side of this too. You were a victim of this
That's
narcissist, but did you have to shed that victim mindset?
Mentality. Yes, that's a
Yeah.
great question. Absolutely. Absolutely. I was a victim to that long narcissistic relationship, but also to others that, again, I didn't recognize until that relationship. I realized, oh my goodness, some of my friends that I've had for years are also narcissistic, and I don't want that around me in my life anymore. Some of my bosses in jobs were narcissistic. Now that makes sense why I did not get along well and had a really hard time. So it was this idea that, yes, at this point going forward, I'm only taking with me the positive, and I'm not going to allow that kind of anger and negativity in my life again, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Is that part of the healing process, the counseling process when you're working with
Yes,
others?
yes, for sure, for sure. And then that speaks to more to, the tools that I use in the healing that I help people with, and myself included, are massage, Reiki, energy healing, and intuitive coaching. And the Reiki, I don't know if you're familiar with any kind of
I looked
energy
it up because
work.
I saw that you performed it. I didn't know what it was, but it's
Yeah.
holding hands over someone. It's a Japanese,
Yes,
came from the
energy.
Japanese culture.
Yes, absolutely. So it's an ancient healing modality. And it's, putting your hands on someone or hovering over them. Because I have a license to touch for massage, I can put my hands on people. But the idea is that it's a moving of stagnant energy in our body. So we're all made of energy, and we all have energy around us. And when we have a pain in our body, whether it's physical or emotional, that energy gets stuck in our body. And so, what Reiki energy does is help move that energy so that your life force energy can be moving normally again. And I speak to it on many forms because, an emotional healing, that would be on your heart. Goes back to what I was saying about that concrete boulder on my heart, right? Well, your heart space is all about love and pain, love and loss and grief, those two, the dichotomy of both. So, many people who have lost someone, something, grief comes in many fashions, not just losing someone. It comes in, a life transition. You mentioned earlier that you're recently retired. I'm on the cusp of empty nest. So those are life transitions. There's excitement, but there's also sadness. So there is grief. When you move, you mentioned you moved a lot, Rob. I've moved also many times. There's grief of what you left behind, and now the excitement of what you're about to, endeavor on. So that grief stays here, right in your chest space, right in your heart. So I help a lot of people with grief specifically to help release that and move that from the body. The narcissistic abuse piece, that's all in your gut, in your stomach, your abdomen, that's your sacral area, which holds for everybody, holds all of our emotions, all of our past, memories, wounds, all of it. It all sits in our stomach area. So I help a lot of people help filter and release some of those past hurts and wounds, things that they don't want to carry anymore. The body keeps the score. The body holds on to emotions and things in our tissues and our muscles. So I help a lot of people in releasing some of that from their life, from their body and their life energetically, so that they can continue on in a healthy way. And it's amazing, Rob, believe me, for the years that I've been doing Reiki, I'm still awed each and every day, because when you release something from your body energetically, you actually feel lighter, and it's amazing. Absolutely
And
amazing.
people can hold on to this for 20, 30, 40 years, right? I mean, there's no
Absolutely.
time limit
Absolutely.
on how long you can hold this.
No. No, and that's why most people myself included, get to a middle-aged point in our life where we recognize now all of these things. These things I did not know. I wish I knew when I was younger, which is why I am always keen to make sure that my boys who are in their teenage years know this stuff from when they're young, because I don't want them to be in their 40s realizing, oh, I got a lot of stuff in my body I got to purge. Okay. I'd
Yeah.
rather them purge it along the way, because yes, you're right. We carry things for years and years and years that we want to release. But then the second step of that, Rob, is recognizing that, okay, well, if I recognize that I'm holding on to things that I want to let go, going forward, because things are always going to happen in your life, right? Going forward, I want to make sure that I don't allow those things to stick and stay in my body. So when something new happens in my life that's stressful or bad or whatever it is, I don't want it to stay in my body. So now I have tools to be able to, whatever it is, I could go on and on about my tools, dance it out, movement, exercise, right? Reiki, whatever, to make sure that that doesn't stay in my body.
Interesting. The Reiki reminds me of something I was just reading in another book, also a neurosurgeon. And he talked about he was going to a conference where he was supposed to speak, recognized that he was coming down with the flu, and he just hit him really hard.
Okay.
And the type of conference he was at was a faith-based conference. They laid him down in the front of the stage and they surrounded him and they laid their hands on him and they started praying for him. And
It's amazing.
all of his symptoms went away.
That is
So
beautiful.
it's kind of that Reiki thing that you're talking about. Very, very similar.
That is so beautiful. And I'm so glad you shared that with me. That's exactly what it is. It's literally, it's love, it's prayer, it's that universal like consciousness of just approaching people with love and compassion. And you can heal anyone, yourself, anyone around you with just, I mean, on an energetics perspective, love, compassion, joy, those are the highest frequencies of energy.
Yeah.
Anger, resentment, hurt, all of those are the lowest. So just by even on a very small level, like if, let's say your wife, your daughter, someone is, I don't know, they're struggling a little bit, they have a big test or a big job interview or whatever the case is, right? And you want to send them love, or if you're physically around, that you give them a big hug and wish them well, but you can just say, on the phone, I'm sending you good energy. I'm thinking about you. I'm sending you love, right? Those things matter. That's energy healing in itself. A hug is therapy. A hug is energy right there, a transferring of love and care. And so you could break it down to the simplest form. And that is an amazing example of just, sending love and healing. And that's what I feel like I do. It's not my energy. It's a divine energy that I am channeling, but my own energy is on top of it, wanting to help. I have a heart of service and I want to help people feel better in their bodies and in their minds. So absolutely. Absolutely. And I can, I was just going to say that you can send energy. That speaks to that energy of sending energy. I send Reiki all the time to people who are in need, and anyone, if you're not a Reiki master, you can send love and care to anyone in your world to help.
You don't have to be physically in the same room even.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, well, I speak to that too. I mean, have you ever had the situation where you're thinking about someone in your world and you're like, oh, I really got to catch up with Joe. Like, Joe's been on my mind, right? I got to give Joe a call when I get a chance. Oh, I didn't get a chance today, but tomorrow I'm going to call Joe. And then suddenly Joe reaches out and contacts you. And you think, well, that's a crazy coincidence. It's not. It's a synchronicity. It's energy. Joe felt you talking about him, thinking about him, and then he reached out to you.
Yeah.
That's energy.
It's wonderful. Where does the massage fit in?
Okay. So that's where I started, actually. So I started with massage, and in my own personal and professional journey, it started with massage, which then evolved into Reiki energy healing and then into intuitive coaching. So massage alone can help anyone, of course. Massage not only helps with muscular pain, of course, if you're feeling something, tension, tightness in your muscles, but it also helps in calming the nervous system and in regulating the body. And most people, we live in a modern world where there's a lot of stress, and most people live in this constant state of fight or flight. And we're just so stressed that we've almost normalized stress at this point. Like, you ask somebody, are you stressed? Oh, no, I'm not really stressed. Meanwhile, they have all these things going on that are like suddenly their shoulders are up at their ears, or they, they have this racing heart. They can't figure out why they're so anxious. Like, there's so many things that go on in our world that people are stressed about. And so massage in itself gives you time to, focus on releasing from the muscles, but also in calming the nervous system. So there's so many benefits of massage in general that help with relieving mental stress as well, anxiety, depression, just overall relaxation of the body, promotes circulation in the body. It helps with so many different things. So massage alone can be a wonderful tool to anybody who's looking for some self-care. My specialty is my signature massage is a massage with Reiki energy healing. So it's a combination of both, which is a beautiful and powerful combination because you're getting the physical manipulation of the muscles for the relief that you need and the tension, and also the energy component as well. And I love doing it. I love sharing it. I love offering it. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful space for sure.
Wow. It sounds healing. Just hearing you describe
it. Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyone who's in the Charlotte area, please come in person. But if you're not in the Charlotte area, Reiki, a virtual Reiki energy session by like this, like a Zoom, people think, oh, it can't work the same way. Yes. Okay. You're not physically putting your hands on someone, but the energy is the same. And I've done many of them, and virtual Reiki healing absolutely can help. So believe it. I think that you can't believe it until you've tried it.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, try it. It's the kind of thing that I joke about, that it's like parenting, that unless you're a parent, you can't really understand what it's like to be a parent, right? So it's the same thing. Unless you've tried it, I could explain it 1,000 different ways, but try to experience it. Open your mind, open your heart, and say, I'm curious to see what that could do for me. And I speak to the fact that a lot of times I get people coming for Reiki for one of two reasons. Either they're curious, they've heard about it, and they're like, I don't know what this is. I'm just wanting to try, which I love. Or I get people in a very desperate state where they're in chronic pain or anxiety through the roof, suffering from trauma, that they don't know what else to do for themselves. And so it's a very desperate place. Like, I don't care what you'll do, just try to help me. And obviously that's a more intense space to be in, but I'm happy to help people in any situation, for sure. For sure.
The virtual Reiki, it's reminding me, I've got a cycling buddy who works for Zoom. I'm telling they need to make this a Zoom add-on. You can do Zoom Reiki.
Wow, absolutely. Zoom Reiki. That's awesome. That's awesome. For sure. For sure. And I do want to make sure that we do hit on just that point of, because you mentioned twice now, like a neurosurgeon and a neuroscientist.
Yeah, the brain rewiring.
Yeah, just because, again, that's why I feel like an expert at this point on so many levels. I'm not a clinical trained therapist, but the psychology and the mental piece and the science piece I understand very well from personal experience and from the massage side. But that whole rewiring of our brain, that's the, neuroplasticity of the brain. And if you do some research on it, it's the idea that we absolutely can retrain our brain and rewire. That whole saying of, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You actually can, right? But with a lot of intention and a lot of patience and consistency. So after leaving the narcissistic relationship, I had to rewire my entire brain and my children's as well. So it's the whole science that when we say we're hardwired, it's because, well, if A happens, then we do B. Those are learned behaviors, learned patterns. That's what we've done for so many years. So you're solidifying that pathway, a neural pathway in your brain. But now what if you say, okay, well, if A happens now, I'm not going to do B, I'm going to do C, right? I'm going to do something different. Well, it feels really, really uncomfortable at first because you're like, but this isn't what I normally do. This doesn't feel right. This feels strange in my body. But you keep practicing and you keep doing, now going from A to C instead of A to B. You keep practicing, you keep solidifying, and now you're retraining that piece in your brain. You're creating a new pathway in your brain. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you can do it. And there's a visual for this one that I love that my girlfriend, who is a clinical therapist, gave me that I share. Now, I'm from New York, so maybe snow is on the brain, but imagine that if you were on a snowy hill and you were sledding and you had a sled and you were going down this path in the snow and you keep going down the same path. Well, that path keeps getting like packed down the snow even more. You keep going faster and faster because it's easier and easier to go down the same path that's been already like carved out for you. But what if you went to the top of that hill again and you took 5 steps to the right and you said, I'm going to make a new path in the snow, and you put your sled down and you start going down the hill? Well, now you're not going as fast because you're having to create that new path in the snow. And it takes many times to keep going down it and keep going down it so that you're now solidifying that new path. It's the same concept in the brain.
Yeah. But it's necessary because
Absolutely.
we have these very unhealthy brain behaviors. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And then that in a bigger picture attributes to generational healing.
Yeah.
Because all of these relationships that I spoke to, that the, narcissism is generational, well, so is the healing from it. So yes, I was in that victim mentality. That's where I sat. I no longer consider myself a victim because I've done the work. I've done the retraining of the brain, the rewiring, the somatic work to help release from my body, so that now my children will hopefully, God willing, get subjected to those kinds of relationships, or if they do, that they're more aware so that they won't have all of the healing that's necessary to recover from it. I speak from the recovery side, but also the preventative side.
Yeah.
I want to help people recover from mind, body, spirit from these relationships, but I also want to help raise awareness, which is why I'm so happy to be here with you, Rob, because I want the younger generation, I want my children's generation and younger to recognize the red flags before getting into these relationships so that they don't have so many years of healing to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we jump into the red flags, I want to jump to what I call my rapid fire round.
Oh,
So I've
love
got
it.
some quick, and I tell everyone it's supposed to be rapid fire, but it often is not. But we'll see if we can make it rapid.
Okay, I'll
All right.
try. I'll
So
try.
just think of the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
A word that describes you now in a storm of life.
Empowered.
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 So this is where I go off the rails, because what do you think that word was before, while you were in the darkest days?
I didn't even know that word. That word did not resonate with me at all, where now it's my force.
Yeah. You didn't even have anything. You, other than the victim of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
trauma.
weak. I was drained, depleted, the complete opposite. No self-confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you draw strength from now in the hardest moments?
My faith, my family, and my friends, my 3 Fs in my
Your
life
3
that I
Fs,
speak
yes.
to a lot. Yes, I'll joke with you. One of my sons loves to joke with me because I speak to them always about the 3 Fs that should be in their life as well.
Yeah.
And he says, he likes to joke with me and says, "No, Mama, it's not faith, family, and friends. It's food, phone with an F, right? And football," because he's a soccer player. And I'm like, "No, those are not the 3 Fs. Okay. You can add those on, but they're not the main ones."
Well, in faith, family, and friends, food is often a common element, isn't it? Breaking
That
bread
is
together.
true. That is true. Food is encompassed into the family and friends. Yes, you're right.
Exactly. All right. What's one spiritual practice that sustains you?
For me, I do self-Reiki every single day. Yes, that's
Self-Reiki.
one. Self-Reiki, yes. So basically laying of hands on myself. That's how I actually started before I even started working on people. I practiced on myself. And meditation. Meditation is such a huge, amazing tool that for me is my go-to when I am completely stressed. But to anyone, I speak meditation and therapy from the rooftops because it's where you find stillness. It's where you connect to your body and to your spirit. And again, it takes practice. You can't just from one day to the next be like this master meditator, like yoga, the same kinds of things. All of those things take practice because you're training your brain to be still, to be silent so that you can connect to your heart and to your spirit. And so meditation is one of the things that's one of my daily, it's a daily tool in general, but if I'm overwhelmed or stressed, it's like, that's what I amp up.
Yeah. And which you may have answered my last question, which is one habit that helps you stay strong.
Yeah, definitely. Meditation, but trying to take care of my body as well. I'm a huge mind, body, spirit believer. So meditation is food for the mind and the soul. You have to take care of your physical body as well. So whether exercise, strength training, just moving in general, I like to dance. So dance is a great way. I mentioned earlier about like releasing energy out of your body. So when something is stressful to me, I'll just put on some music and dance, and you're almost like, and intentionally, because it's intentional, like releasing, like I don't want to hold this in my body. So yeah, those would be, I guess, my intentional go-tos. Or earthing. Earthing's another one as well. And today, actually, speaking on Earth Day, today is Earth Day. I just did my video for my YouTube channel this morning. Earthing is another scientific method. You can look it up, research it, is a great way. If you are stressed, one of the quickest ways that you can de-stress is through your breath, number one. So breath work is another modality. But 2, kick off your shoes, get outside and get your feet barefoot on the ground. And it sounds very hippy-dippy, and I know that, okay, but it's true because the earth has electrons and minerals and things in the earth that are healing and soothing. And when you are barefoot, it's coming up into your body and relieving stress. And so you're decompressing, you're releasing whatever you don't want in your body, and you're it's almost like a recharge from the earth. And it sounds crazy, but Try it. Trust me, it works.
I'm going to try that. And I was thinking about, as kids, we run around barefoot, right, all summer.
Yes, absolutely. Or you lay on the grass. Were you ever a kid? I know I did this, and my kids definitely did, where you roll down a hill, right?
Yes.
Like things like that, getting your body connected to the earth. You're right. All of those childlike practices that we as adults just gave up because, oh, that's silly, or, oh, I don't have time for that. Get back to some of that. Connect with your inner child, and you'd be surprised at how much it helps with any stress or anxiety in your world.
Fantastic. I didn't realize there was a term for it, earthing.
Yes, look it
Okay.
up. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Go touch a tree. There's so many different ways you could do it.
Yes. Go hug a tree.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Well, I want to wrap up with some advice for people. And I think the red flags is a good way to do it, because there may be listeners who are involved in this type of relationship, or who maybe succumb to one, or I don't want them to enter one if they can avoid it. So what
Yes.
are some of those red flags to look out for?
Yes, great. And that's a great way to end, because that's what I like to educate and help people with. Part of the process is trying to recognize them early on. So whenever anyone is whether you recognize you're in a relationship right now that might have some of these things, or if you're starting a new relationship, a new friendship, a new work relationship, look out for the inconsistencies. So that's where I'll start, because a narcissist, and we mentioned earlier, will say one thing to you and then another thing to another person and tell you something different, or go back to you and tell you something else that they said they told you, but they didn't, right? Looking out and paying close attention and observing any inconsistencies or any little white lies. Typically, where there's a little white lie, there's larger lies. And that's personally how I actually found out that there was lying and cheating and manipulating going on in my relationship, that big relationship. So pay attention. It's the behaviors and the actions of a narcissist that you want to track, because every person is different, right? We're all individuals. But with narcissism, it's the patterns of behavior that are scripted, that they are the same across the board, that you could read in books and see it play out in your life. So red flags, of that overly, let's say a start of a relationship, overly affectionate, overly attention. It feels too much. It feels nice, but it feels too much. And it's something inside of you is kind of like, I don't know, this seems like a little much. It probably is.
Is this like gifts, or just affection, or just everything?
Gifts, affection, attention, wanting to do everything that you do. Oh, you like to go rock climbing? I love rock climbing, right? Like everything, like you're like, this is the perfect person. They love everything that I love, right? And then slowly as the relationship goes on, and then suddenly they're like, oh, rock climbing is stupid. I don't like rock climbing. But wait a minute, that's not what you told me before, right? Or, celebrating holidays. Oh, I love to celebrate this holiday, and like shower you like Valentine's Day with affection and flowers. And then a few years later, like, Valentine's Day is stupid. I don't really do Valentine's Day, like that kind of a thing. So the inconsistencies, that something that was said or believed to be true that isn't true anymore. Other red flags. Yeah, the gaslighting, the subtle manipulations. It's all about control with a narcissist. So they're trying to control you to do what they want, what they need for them. So the gaslighting is just trying to make you question your own reality. So you'd say in the relationship, well, I don't know, an example would be, I said, let's go to the movies on Saturday. And then you're like, okay, great. And then it comes closer to Saturday, and you're like, oh, I'm ready to go to the movies. And they're like, I never said I was going to go to the movies with you. What are you talking about? Like, you must have misunderstood that. You're just making things up, right? So now you walk away thinking, am I crazy? Did I misunderstand that? Or no, I'm pretty sure they said that we were going to go to the movies. And now you're questioning your own internal radar. And that's your intuition. And that's where it can get really, really sticky. Not having a voice. When someone's not able to compromise with you, again, a normal relationship. Oh, what do you want to eat tonight? You want to go out to dinner? I feel like pizza. Oh, I feel like Asian. Okay, well, let's compromise. We'll do pizza this time, Asian next time, whatever the case is, right? Or fusion, right? When someone is not able to compromise and you recognize that, along the way, it's just always what they want. It's always what they want. Or they try to circumvent your opinion and make you think, that's the other one, make you think that you decided something, but really you didn't decide it. They just wanted that, like they made you think that that's what you wanted. And it gets really, really confusing, because a lot of times I think, oh, I want to do this. But like, no, is it me who really wants to do this? Or is it the person that I'm with? Another red flag Just the lack of empathy is one. When, if you're upset and you go to this person and you say, like, I'm upset, I want to just voice my emotions, my feelings. It's normal to want to do that with someone in your life. And they just kind of, dismiss it, dismiss your feelings, dismiss, or not only not validate your feelings, they invalidate your feelings. Like, this is a classic line from narcissists. You shouldn't feel that way. Well, first of all, like, everyone's entitled to their own feelings, and I'm able to feel however I feel, and you're able to feel however you feel. So when someone says you shouldn't feel that way, I mean, that's a red flag right there. They're telling you how to feel, right? Or, the apologies that are not genuine, the I'm sorry you feel that way, or I'm sorry you think I did that, or I'm sorry, like, watch out for those apologies during disagreements, because they're very important. A genuine apology is, I'm sorry that I hurt you, and I'll be more conscious of it next time. Not, I'm sorry, but,
Yeah.
or I'm
sorry that you
sorry,
did this.
yeah, that you did this. I'm sorry you felt that way, right? I'm sorry you felt hurt when I did X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry when you called out the abuse type of thing, right? So that's not okay. So a lot of it is very subtle. It's very intricate, but the biggest thing that I can say is just pay close attention, observe, because if you're not, and that's what happened to me in many of those narcissistic relationships, I wanted to believe in the good in people, and I wanted to believe that nobody would be trying to do this kind of thing and so I really didn't pay attention. But when I started paying attention, that's where everything changed. So I do have soon on my website, it's coming. On my website, I have a one pager, like a 10 red flags to look for and to spot for if you're getting into a new relationship, or if you're already in a relationship and you're questioning that relationship. It's going to be soon posted as something on my website. It's coming soon.
And where's your website? What's the address?
So my website, yes, is www.healinghandsbydeanna.com. And anything and everything, all of my services and the events that I run are on there. For the narcissistic abuse support group, that is specifically that's a meetup group that is then funneled to my website to register for the meetings.
So is that a live or virtual meeting?
It's virtual. It was for many years. For a few years I did it in person in 2 different locations, in Charlotte and Raleigh, but now I have it virtual just so that it's easier and it can expand to anybody anywhere.
So you don't have to be in Charlotte to participate
Right.
in that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And your
Exactly.
YouTube channel, what's that? Is that also the Healing Hands by Deanna?
Yes. So that's also Healing Hands. You can just look up Healing Hands by Deanna on YouTube for that link. I also have Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, all of those things. But my YouTube channel I started last year. It's actually been really exciting. And you mentioned, in your podcast and going out of your comfort zone. And that was it for me with the YouTube channel and posting videos, because I wanted to not only just, of course, gain exposure for what I do and how I can help people, but I realized that I talk to a lot of people in my daily work about self-care tips and emotional healing and mental health and all these different things that I wanted to share to the masses. So it's more of a mind, body, spirit channel about, different ways you can help support yourself in general. But then there are specific videos I have on narcissistic abuse and its healing and things to look out for. So it's a combination.
Good. Well, I wish I had had access to those years ago. But,
I know. Me too. Trust me. Trust me.
Yes.
Better late than never, Rob. Better late than never.
Never, yes. So we'll get the word out. Hopefully people will come find that. Very valuable stuff. Deanna, this has really been valuable. It's been fun, a pleasure chatting with you. And I'm so happy that you had the faith to come out of this and come out of it.
Thank you.
Happy and
thank you so much.
Whole.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you and your story, your how you even got to be here on the hosting this podcast, and how I got to be here. Because if I didn't help heal myself, I wouldn't be in the space to be able to help others, and I wouldn't be here with you right now. So thank you for saying that. I'm very grateful, and thank you for this opportunity to reach more people. And I always say, if I can reach just one person, in doing a podcast, I like to do them and be a guest, because if I can reach maybe even just one person in your audience, I'm hoping it's more, then I feel fulfilled that my pain was not for nothing, and it has purpose.
That's always my goal too. I think, okay, I don't know who's listening to this, where it's going, but if I can touch one person with this story.
Exactly.
So if you are
Exactly.
that one person who's listening who is touched, let Deanna and I know.
Yes, please do. Please do. Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.